John Wick Chapter 4 proves that the only person that can kill John Wick is John Wick. And even that is debatable. After roughly killing the population of Guam in the previous films, John Wick is starting to think he might have gone overboard about that one time someone killed his dog that he had for only 8 hours. The movie opens up just where you expect it, in a subway station maintenance room that has an indoor baseball field, and the diamond is literally on fucking fire. John is playing second base, and by playing second base, I mean he's punching a board with rope bound to the top of it. He had Morpheus pick up his dry cleaning, and he only has one question for John.
You ready, John?
To which the most badass line Keanu could ever drop on us mere mortals is uttered.
Yeah.
I want yas. Lots of yas. And I'm starting to get them right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been about 2 weeks since the Baba Yaga has taken a life, so he starts in easy mode, fast travels to the desert, and obliterates 4 terrorists. That was for 9/11, bags. Meanwhile, back in New York, where we once got 9/11'd, the Harbinger tells Winston that the Hotel Continental is being condemned and this movie is going to be 3 hours. Winston doesn't believe him until the Harbinger pulls out an excessively large hourglass to show he's not f***ing around. This movie indeed is going to be 3 hours long.
You have 1 hour.
Plus 2 more shithead. Winston and Lance Reddick visit the Marquis, who also has an excessively large hourglass, to really hammer home the point that this movie is indeed 3 fucking hours. Later, we watch the Marquis unnecessarily torture this teacup by stirring it for a really long time. This scene seems excessively violent, and I'm surprised that they weren't told to tone it down. The teacup nor the audience deserve this kind of treatment, but you can tell that Marquis is a bad guy because who would make the audience sit through this much tea stirring if they weren't a villain? He is so meticulous about his tea, he is clearly an asshole that must be violently taken out of civilized society. But Winston still sensed some good in him.
Oh, I do?
To prove him wrong, the Marquis blows up the Continental, shoots Lance Reddick in the heart, and says the stupidest thing a John Wick villain has ever said.
We're not here because of John Wick.
The fuck we're not.
Yeah.
Later, the Marquis decides in order to finally kill John Wick, he's going to have to get the best of the best. Knowing John Wick is a master assassin, he has to hire someone with the best hand-eye coordination in the world. Someone who could see danger from around the corner. So he picks the cream of the crop, qualified to do the job. A blind man named Kane. Kane looks like he dropped so much money in Vegas, Caesar's Palace always comps him the high roller suite. Sure, the cocktail waitresses always have rope burns when they leave his room, but they are 10 grand richer for it and no one says a word. John Wick has massacred more people than a nuclear bomb, so I don't think sending a person with a disability to kill him is the best option. But the Marquis clearly knows what he's doing because only a man with supreme confidence could be wearing an outfit like this while eating at a buffet. Now that John Wick has cleaned up the world's terrorism problem, he goes to Tokyo to ruin another friend's life just by stepping foot in his hotel. A move so obvious even a blind Donnie Yen saw it coming. The guy from Bullet Train runs this hotel with his daughter Akira, and when shit hits the fan, her kicks are so powerful she can completely whiff this guy's leg and still knock him over. John Wick, who has not killed anybody in the last 20 minutes, is starting to feel like his movie is slipping away from him. Gives people leg hugs and shoots them in the head. Crushes heads with nunchucks. And takes up taiko drumming. Meanwhile, the top 5 fights featuring sumo wrestlers inside a commercial kitchen while Donnie Yen eats ramen takes place downstairs. And out of all the fight scenes featuring sumo wrestlers inside commercial kitchens while Donnie Yen eats ramen, this might be my second favorite. After the ramen hits the spot, Donnie Yen's first victim is his own shoe, and he strangles it with a shoelace. Badass. He plays little knock-knock jokes on his attackers, but what they don't know is that the punchline is a blind guy with a gun is killing them. John and Kane run into each other and have a bit of catching up.
I'm sorry.
Me too.
John almost loses the fight, but Kane's handy disability makes an appearance.
You dead, John?
Kane can aim and shoot people using his hearing, but hearing John Wick breathe heavily 2 feet in front of him is impossible for him. The tracker seems to be very upset by this massive plot hole and decides to cover it up by shooting some glass. This attempt to fix the story on the fly is more than enough for John Wick to escape. Now that John Wick feels better about ruining another friend's life and creating the world's largest OSHA violation, he leaves his friends to die. So the man the entire world is hunting seeks refuge in a spot no one will ever find him, in a very public subway station. John Wick is so quick to disappear that the wounded Akira catches up to him. The Marquis then hires a tracker named Nobody to do the job only a wounded woman could accomplish. To make sure he does the job correctly, he stabs Nobody right in the fucking hand. This might not make sense to you, but it's a John Wick movie and violence needs to happen. John Wick is so deep underground, it takes Nobody about 5 minutes to track him down using only one hand, a Nokia flip phone, and a sketchbook. John Wick is in Berlin in search of Russians who live inside a church to sponsor him in a duel against the Marquis. If everything I said doesn't make sense to you, don't worry, because this priest here pulls out a double-barrel shotgun and blasts away your thinking cap.
Throw him.
Knowing John's mere presence will ruin their Bible study, the Russian family does the most Christian thing they can think of and slowly and painfully hang John Wick. But John knows one thing Christians can't say no to. It is a good side quest mission. He offers to go on a crusade for them in exchange for their family crest and backing.
Bring proof of death.
His target is a Dick Tracy villain, and John must kill him before heart failure does. It is clearly a race against time. John, ready to kill his mark, does the most insane stunt in John Wick history. Sits down and plays poker under an absurdly large fan. In true stereotypical form, Donnie Yen senses gambling and shows up. He sits down to play a hand and somehow knows he was dealt a 4 of a kind by just touching the cards.
4 9s.
I'm starting to think Donnie Yen is not blind at all. Before anyone can call him out for faking a disability, Donnie Yen handicaps the entire room. Not only is the Dick Tracy villain a master at shuffling cards, he's also an Olympic sprinter who has the speed of a gazelle. With some quick thinking, John shoots him in the ass to bring him down to a chaseable level. The music in this nightclub is such a banger that nobody notices the multiple homicides happening right before their eyes. The molly egg has been cracked and the big yolk of love has dripped over everyone's head. There is no way they are going to let a small massacre ruin their night. This proves the only thing John Wick cannot kill is the vibe. After John catches up to him, the Dick Tracy Olympian has something to tell John. John the ass shooter and the Dick Tracy villain have a karate fight in the middle of the rave. The people watching this fight go down mistake this for a new dance move, and later karate dance fighting takes Europe by storm. Dick Tracy villain wants to stop dancing before his heart has a level 3 meltdown, so he throws John the ass shooter over the balcony. Clearly, he didn't watch Chapter 3, where John fell 20 stories only to walk it off like he stubbed a toe. So this little free fall is like getting out of bed for him. More people die in a hatchet fight. More guys get their nuts bitten by a dog. And more people keep dancing. And And then the Dick Tracy Olympian makes the action movie mistake and says the line villains always say right before they die.
Why don't you just die?
By movie logic, this line juices John Wick's muscles to 400% capacity and throws the Dick Tracy villain off a balcony. The thunderous impact of a 500-pound man is enough to tell the dancers in the nightclub that they are surely in a dangerous environment. Now that he proved that he can also kill a vibe, John Wick now has a family sponsor. It is time for Winston to tell the Marquis he's a f***ing dead man by walking through this gallery. It is a voyage that takes him approximately 1 hour to complete, and we get to watch every action-packed step, wondering if he'll ever make it. Instead of a brief scene of someone describing to John Wick the rules and location of the duel, the filmmakers said brevity is for pussies, and instead we go over the rules in painstaking detail over cards we do not understand. Yeah. The Eiffel Tower in the background symbolizes that a man's penis can only be so erect during such a high voltage sequence. Now that the rules are understood by no one, John Wick must live before the duel takes place, so John takes refuge in the most secretive of spots. But as the film has already established in previous scenes, John hiding in subways is nearly impossible. Also, if he's hiding in subways, chances are he had Morpheus pick up the dry cleaning.
42 regular, wasn't it?
It turns out that Marquis is not a man of honor and sweetens the deal for anyone to kill John Wick before he can make it to the duel. Now that the bounty is set at $26 million, it makes every lazy Frenchman get off his ass and take a shot at John Wick. The very American John Wick isn't going to let 300 Frenchmen scare him, so he blitzes them knowing they'll give up in a few minutes. John Wick is so hard to track that a radio station DJ inside a soundproof booth knows his precise location at all times.
Has been spotted in the 7e arrondissement.
And now is rolling to the Arc de Triomphe.
Our wicked friend is on the move again.
He's headed your way.
Mr. Wick has the church inside.
He gets into numerous auto accidents, shoots everyone in a public street with no one noticing, and almost gets ran over by Sandra Bullock. But the most revealing part of the film doesn't come until this moment. The Marquis has a fucking phone butler. I don't know how rich you have to be, but I hope to God one day I'm phone butler rich. Now that John has killed the entire city of Paris, all he has to do is climb these steps and make it to the duel. Son of a bitch. Now that John has killed all of Paris, plus these guys in his way while climbing the stairs, he can now make it to the duel on time. You gotta be fucking kidding me. You're not fucking kidding me. After John falls down the stairs for roughly 2 hours and 17 minutes, this asshole slides down and kicks John down even more flights of stairs. This movie was just kicked into an infinite state of falling with no end in sight. This man really is a Time Lord, and the only way to break John out of his spell of falling is to stab the Time Lord in the hand with a fucking pencil, have a dog bite him in the nuts, shoot him in the head, and piss in his face. Now that John has been broken out of the Time Lord's spell of falling down the stairs, he can make it to the duel. He duels the faker Donnie Yen, almost loses, shoots the Marquis dead, and sits on a flight of stairs. Remembering that one time he fell down 500 stairs, He is frightened at the thought of stairs now. Not getting over his fear of stairs, John dreams of a stairless world and dies a happy man. John Wick Chapter 4 is a complicated mess. On one hand, it's a top-notch action film that brings the John Wick saga to a conclusion that seems fitting. On the other hand, it's bloated and boring. I lost count how many scenes could be cut right out of the picture, and it would have still been the same movie. The action scenes feature some of the best stunt work you will ever find in cinema, but at the same time they seem to have phoned it in. Most of the stunts we've seen in the previous 3 films. The action sequences are not dialed up to 11 in terms of thrills, but rather stretched out in length, almost to test your man card. Go ahead and try and tell your buddies that the action scenes were too long. It is a John Wick movie. What did you want, silly? The Gilmore Girls?
Yeah.
John Wick Chapter 4 suffers from its franchise's success. The first John Wick was a low-budget action flick that barely got off the ground, and with each chapter outdoing the last in terms of box office success, meant it had to keep outdoing itself in terms of budget. It is clear now they ran out of gas in Chapter 3 and limped home in Chapter 4. There was nowhere else to go, and you can tell that director Chad Stahelski was going to the well of what works. There doesn't seem to be any shock or awe to any of the action sequences. It's paint by numbers now for John Wick, but I do have to make note that it does feature a badass sequence where John completely annihilates Frenchmen with a shotgun shooting fire. It's sequences like this that make John Wick 4 worth the watch. There are great things to be said about plotless action films. Most do not go past 90 minutes, giving you the thrills that you want without overstaying their welcome. On paper, stretching a movie like John Wick out to a gaping 3 hours might sound like Christmas to action cinema fans, but in practice I became complacent, almost checking my watch to see how much longer I got.
You have 1 hour.
That being said, John Wick 4 is by no means a terrible movie. Even with side quest missions and meandering scenes, or the fact that John is now invincible to any kind of damage, I still found myself rooting for John Wick. He's still a man of few words and lets the action do the talking. I thoroughly enjoyed myself with John Wick 4, even with all the worthless bloat, finding myself hoping that this will be the last installment.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.